Exercise physiologist Ryan Fritz likes two things: hunting and exercise science. He also has some pretty big hunts on the horizon. Are you ready to listen to two fitness professionals geek out about training, hunting, timelines for preparation, and human performance? Well, if you do, you're in the right place. Episode 13 of the Fit to Hunt podcast, powered by Wilderness Athlete. It starts now. I think this is probably the most unprepared that I've been for a conversation, right?
It's all good. All good.
How you doing, Ryan?
Doing well. Been a crazy day, starting out the new year, but I think everybody's got the same mindset of rocking and rolling and getting prepared and ready for 2026. Looking forward to it. I have a bison hunt in Wyoming at a ranch that I'm going to. And so that's kind of my fall schedule. And then I have spring bear coming up at the first week and a half of May.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, good times.
And where are you coming from? I'm in St. Louis. Where are you at?
So I live in central Maryland.
Okay.
Maryland's kind of an interesting place. So I grew up a mile from the Appalachian Mountains or the Appalachian Trail. So I
Uh-huh.
used to trail run and turkey hunt, like literally right near the trail. I work in DC, so I drive 90 miles to go to work. So I have an
Oh
hour and
boy.
a half commute, and I go down to DC 3 times a week.
Oh boy.
But I am in Blue Ridge Mountain, kind of moonshine, and the the bluegrass bands. So, but kind of all over the place. My wife grew up in Seattle, so she's got family in Seattle and Boise, Idaho. And then I've met some cool people along the way in my travels and career. I got a couple friends in Montana, Bozeman area, and then my wife has cousins, so we know people all over the country, all over the world, and so we
Hmm.
have a good time traveling.
That's awesome. I've been following you for a while, right? So the Instagram, the website, the science of cardio. I need to know. I mean, I know your pedigree. I'm looking at it right now, but how did you come by that name? I'm curious.
Okay, so the gist was I went to Athletes Performance. It's called Exos now.
Hmm.
Um, in my college, my one professor for one of the classes required us to do 30 VO2 tests for our kind of graduating capstone. So, uh, went to Exos. They have professional athletes,
Hmm.
college, NFL combine, Olympics, the best of the best. Kurt Schilling was out there making them. I was able to do a VO2 test with Marshall Falk,
Oh
which
man.
was super cool.
Yeah.
And basically their ESD guy, Energy Systems Development, he's like their cardio.
Yeah.
We call him the mad scientist. His name's Paul Robbins. He kind of took me under his wing and he's like, all right, I'll help you out with this stuff. So he kind of like showed me the
Hmm.
software and let me run with it. And so I loved it. It was really, really cool, very sciencey. I love data. And
Yeah.
so when I kind of got done school, moved back to the East Coast from Arizona, I ended up buying one of these VO2 analyzers from this guy, Paul.
Uh-huh.
And this was kind of years down the road. And then I became the ESD or the VO2 guy for a big box gym.
Hmm.
And I came into being the director. So there was, I think, 8 facilities that they would basically use this machine, do VO2 tests. I would go to different locations and do testing like all day Saturday. Usually have like 6 or 8 people just lined up. So I, did hundreds of VO2 tests and kind of taught and educated their staff on the VO2 stuff. I ended up having 2 of those machines, and eventually I kind of broke off and started my own business. So that's where
Right.
the science cardio comes from. With that, kind of fast forwarding longer, I got so tired of explaining the physiology and the basic science of it, and it went from I'm trying to help people train better with the actual, practical, but here's how, you do the VO2 stuff, the
Mm-hmm.
training. And I was really just educating people on, hey, here's the creatine phosphate energy system, here's the glycolytic, here's the Krebs cycle.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm not a biology teacher. Like we're here to perform and not, educate. So I got kind of burned out with it. I ended up donating those two machines to my college that I went to, because I started realizing it was very into the weeds, and people were like, just give me the basics, what I have to do. And, I mean, there's simple programs. People will complicate things too much, but I mean, like the Couch to 5K, it's a
Mm-hmm.
great program. You don't have to have a fancy test. You don't have to have crazy science. Um, data collection stuff to get better at whatever you do. So, as long as there's kind of the one-up game and you're trying to improve and micro progress things over time, you're going to get better. You're going to have success. And so, a lot of where I've gone is when I was out in Arizona, I met I think he was a defensive tackle. It's 13 knee surgeries
Oh boy.
and couldn't move. And he's like, yeah, just be careful stretching out my leg. It doesn't move well. And so that really steered me into the injury prevention thing. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
professional athletes, they have lots of opportunities financially and also with coaches and doctors. And it's like, if this guy's the best of the best and he's got access to the best of the best, why is he so broken and beaten up?
Right.
So that really inspired me to learn more about injury. So I worked for a chiropractor for about a year, a little under a
Mm-hmm.
year. Really got, I've always really liked physical therapy, but I have found that physical therapy is very structured, and it's kind of like, well, if A doesn't work, we do B.
Mm-hmm.
And the insurance dictates a lot of that. So I always got frustrated because it's like, I saw the chiropractor like, oh, we're not going to do this because insurance won't pay for it. And it's like, no, if it's the best thing and works and helps this person out, why wouldn't you do it? Um, and so with that, I got into manual muscle testing, to try to figure out. So it's kind of a applied kinesiology. I got into MAT, muscle activation technique. So really cool, diagnostic assessment
Mm-hmm.
tools that figure out kind of your individual needs versus, well, everybody at the age of 25 needs to do 220 minus your age and get this and that. And so, yeah, I love geeking out, getting into the weeds. So, yeah.
It's interesting though because I agree with what you said. It's important to have the science behind that, but there's a lot of times, even with me personally working with a client, they may not care about that. I need to know it, and I need to be able to program that and maybe explain it to a certain level, but all they want to do is hike better up that hill. They don't really care about all the things that you just described from a biological perspective. So no, but like today even, and I didn't realize that you that you had worked at Athletes Performance or Exos. I mean, like we said when we were texting back and forth, before I read those books, I was still chest day, back day,
Right.
leg day. Ryan, it was transformative for me. I mean, and here I sit here at 50 years of age doing whatever I want. And to your point, um, if I do get something that doesn't feel right, it's tight, it's hurting, 9 times out of 10, I can figure it out, either through mobility or foam rolling, stretching, or a corrective exercise along the way. So, honestly, um, super grateful that I picked up that book one day and thought, "Boy, this is weird and different." And I remember doing just the active warm-ups and thinking to myself, "Oh my god, that was hard," because 'cause I'd never done active warm-ups before,
Yep.
right? So, that's awesome, man. Well, look, hey, it's New Year's time, right? Everybody's doing what? They're planning hunts, but I don't know that people always plan for their training. I'm still getting a lot of people that are calling me 4 weeks prior to going out in elk season saying, what should I do? And I'm like, well, maybe think about what we should have done in February, right?
Yeah, too
So
late.
too late, right? I would love, you've talked already a little bit about your own hunts. I would love to get your perspective on when people should be thinking about starting based upon what they're going after. And I
Yeah,
guess really even like where.
yeah. So again, I'm very scientific. So for me, it's all about the research. So the research basically says at a minimum, it's going to take 6 weeks to see anything.
Hmm.
So don't expect to lose 5 pounds 2 weeks after New Year's when you just started your new plan. So we're looking at a month and a half minimum. And so most of the literature kind of says 10 to 15 weeks is kind of
Hmm.
where you start seeing changes, weight loss, muscle, this kind of stuff. So um, for me, I kind of shoot for that 15-week mark. When you start getting past 16 weeks, you
Hmm.
start to get maybe into overtraining if you don't know what you're doing. You get burnt out mentally. You're like, man, I'm tired of doing this. I've been killing myself for over 4 months and just,
Hmm.
and so you get plateau. And so that plateau is where the professional athletes live. And so we should be thinking of the same thing. Like, how do I keep injury free if I stay under that 15, 16 weeks? Um, so basically, I just reverse engineer and say, okay, I'm planning. So me personally, I'm going out to Montana for spring bear, Bob Marsh Wilderness area. I am planning on going the 7th of May, and so I basically had my hard calendar out today and I was writing 15, 14, 13 and going back. And I start my 15 weeks on January 22nd.
Okay.
And so I think, it's silly. It's kind of simple. I mean, you could go on Google and, chat me GPT and just say, I'm going on a hunt this week. What's 15 weeks prior to that? But that lays the foundation and the groundwork of your program and what you do. And so, that's kind of the spring agenda. Elk, if you're going out in September, 15 weeks from that is May.
Hmm.
And so you can train and work out and do things, before that 15 weeks, but you want to start kind of getting in the grind and being real dialed in,
Hmm.
week 1 to week 15. So I'll just kind of go through a little bit of my backcountry training. So I kind of have there's 3 phases. Kind of phase 1 is just get myself moving, hiking, prepped to handle pack loads and getting to hiking. So that's usually the first third of it, first 5 weeks. Then the second 5 weeks, I start putting on a little more weight on my packs. I'm still doing similar strength training stuff, but try to get those loads up. So,
Right.
getting 50 to 60, 75 pounds on my pack.
Hmm.
And then the last phase, the last 5 weeks, I'm kind of maxing my pack out 80, 90 pounds. But I take the last week or two and I unload.
Yeah.
So I will, because I just conditioned myself over 15 weeks. I'm not going to lose it in a day. I'm not
Right.
going to lose it in a week. So I'm kind of strategically micro progressing that up over that long period of time. And I'm saying, hey, I'm in shape at week 14. I don't need to kill myself or potentially hurt or injure
Hmm.
anything. So I'm going to kind of coast that last week, not do as much volume, and just be smart about how I'm going. And, I'm mentally and physically prepared. I'm ready to go.
Right.
Now, that last 5 weeks, I also increased the volume. So the first 2 5 week or the first phase 1 and phase 2, I will ruck 1 day a week with heavy load, and I'll hike with kind of a moderate to lighter load for
Hmm.
distance. The last phase, week 5, I will start increasing the volume. So I have 2 days where I'm rucking. So I might have, just a body weight hike, but I'll increase my hiking and kind of, because if you're hiking for 5 days in a row, you can't say, oh well, I work out every other day,
Right.
and it's like, well, you're climbing crazy mountains and you're carrying
Right.
heavy loads, and hey, after that 10-mile day, with 100 pounds on your back, you still got to go another 5 miles to the truck the next day.
Sure.
So you want to prep your body, your joints, and your spine for that.
Mhm.
The rocking thing is really, I've geeked out on it over the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm sure everybody does the same thing, but you start doing it, you're like, oh, this is cool. Then you hurt your back. You're doing too much too fast.
Mhm.
And so over the last 4 or 5 years, I've dialed that in. You have to microdose it and micro progress it. You're better to be conservative and less intense and go up 2.5 pounds. And, you're looking at that long term adaptation, if you will, versus crap, I got 4 weeks to get ready for this marathon or, hunt. And you're just crushing yourself. Oh, I'll do 25 pounds this week, 50 pounds next week,
Mhm.
75. Like your body can't handle that. So it's like I was taught callus versus a blister.
Mhm.
If you work slowly, your body builds up thick calluses in your hands or your feet. If you go too fast, you get a blister. It hurts like that. So
Mhm.
that's I would say the big advice for kind of that just plan it out, take your time and get yourself slowly adapted to that so that you're not tornadoing a disc, blowing out your back, pulling something. So I think that's wisdom. So those are kind of, again, just reverse engineers. And then as far as like exercise program stuff goes, uh, I have a list of stuff that I want to check either in a session or a day. Now, I have the opportunity to see this at the highest level
Mhm.
in professional athletes, Olympic athletes. And essentially, what we do is we just say, hey, here's 20 things. We need to cover all that stuff in an hour session or 45-minute session. And we would say, we're going to spend 5 minutes on prehab exercises
Mhm.
or injury prevention. We're going to spend 5 minutes on mobility. We're going to do, 90-90 stretches. Let's do that. We're going to spend a couple minutes doing correctives that are specific to you. So for me, I have certain shoulder or bow exercises that I do daily. I have toe things that I do. Um, and then with all that stuff, I mean, that's 15 minutes of the program. That's your warm up, dynamic warm up. Then you do the strength. Another thing that's not really, I think, addressed well is velocity or power.
Yeah.
Um, and not so much from hey, you got to roll this elk over to, pull it up. You may do that, but just when you're side hilling and you're
Mhm.
going out the side of a mountain for a mile or, you're sneaking up on something, like your body does a lot of reps. And if it's not used to that, and the only time you've done that the last 15 weeks is, week 16 when you're out in the woods,
Mhm.
like it just kills your body. Your body
Right.
needs to recover. And so power velocity is something, I was talking to somebody, might have been Dan Staten, when you have 100 pounds on your back or your camp or whatever, you have to crawl over logs and under stuff, and your gun's poking and hitting trees. And it's a lot different than in a perfect gym setup where, everything, oh, it's an 18-inch box and, every step's perfect, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And you're doing this in the woods and doing that and up. And so like I feel like your cardio or your ESD energy systems development is like a science way using the physiology for cardio. But all that stuff needs to be relative to what you're doing, very
Mhm.
uh, specific. We call it specificity or sport specific. And you know, I personally think you're better off to get outside, get on a trail, get your gear. I have an outdoorsman Atlas ruck pack that I put weight
Yeah.
on.
I've
Uh,
seen that.
that's really cool because I can micro progress it. I can go up 2.5 pounds each week. When you're throwing crap into a sandbag or just in your pack,
Mhm.
I've been there and done that. This week it's 7 pounds, next week it's 10, this is 5. You're, oh crap, I gotta come up with 5 pounds, and you're throwing dumbbells and weights and plates and
Right.
stuff. And so um I would highly, it's a huge investment. I mean, I think of the money that I spend on hunts in a year, the travel, I mean, to get somewhere for me to fly, it's $3,000 between a rental car, a flight,
Mhm.
meals, and a hotel at the beginning. And so it's like, to not spend $300, to not do, kind of things that are gold nuggets
Right.
is silly. And, it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Just, it's just stupid. It's like, why not? We have, um, and so I really like that path because you can put those increments on it. If you don't have the money, they can't do it. You can figure out ways to mimic that, but get outside. I see so many people, they're trying to mimic the outdoors in gyms. And, I mean, we have to do that. I swim, so that's kind of my recovery midweek cardio session. And the purpose that I swim is to take load off my joints.
Hmm.
So I'm crushing myself on Tuesday. I swim on Thursday because
Right.
I just had 80 pounds on my back.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so I'm still getting the cardiovascular challenge benefit adaptation, but I'm not crushing my joints, my vertebrae,
Hmm.
spine, discs, and whatnot. So everything that you do or should be doing is very strategic. I call it's a chess game, not a checkers game.
Right.
If your training goes along with your hunting, you got to be just very dialed into everything you're doing with your e-scouting. So I'll bring this up, kind of e-scouting. I'll go through and pick out points on Onyx or GoFund or Gaia, wherever. And then
Hmm.
I'll do a trail or they call it track, I think, or route, and I'll figure out what the elevation is. I'll figure out what the distance is, and I'll plug that into my training. And I'll say, hey, I know for me to get to camp one, it's a 5 mile hike, and there's a 1,200 vertical incline to camp one. So I will go up to the mountains and try to mimic that somewhere at the end of my training routine so that I am I know exactly what I'm getting into, and I know
Hmm.
exactly this is gonna suck. Last spring, me and my hunting partner, we had a 2,000-foot vertical climb after a 5 mile hike. So we put camp down at the bottom of the river, and then
Uh-huh.
we went up the flats after 5 miles. And so I knew that was coming. So I kind of had to do a workout program to get me prepped for that. Now I knew I was unloading a lot of
Hmm.
weight with camp, but you can mimic the same thing. People always ask me like, "Oh, well, you don't have." My wife jokes. She says, "You don't have mountains on the East Coast," and I said, "No, we got rolling hills."
Right.
So we go to West Virginia, we go to Pennsylvania. We're right on the border. We have about 1,000 feet on our mountains here. So I will do intervals or laps.
Up and
So
down.
usually I'll do like three, possibly four kind of up and down intervals.
Hmm.
But again, building it over the weeks. Obviously week one, I'm not going to be doing 4 sets of 1,000-foot verticals.
Right.
But that's what, scouting and planning comes for. You need to know what you're getting into a little bit. I mean,
Sure.
sometimes you end up in places that you never looked at, researched, don't know. But the more prepared you are, the better success you have on so many levels.
Hmm.
I hear these stories of guys bonking, they get 2 days in, they don't have their nutrition dialed in,
Hmm.
they're, not safe, they go out and they're toast, they're
They're
under
done.
eating, they're underfed,
Right.
underfueled, and they're like, I can't go, I can't, and you hear a lot of guys say that. And so the better prepared you are, like you just hammer it and do good, and it's not a thing, and you go and do what you want to do. Um, so yeah, I was kind of explaining these check boxes of prehab. So that's injury prevention stuff. So for like my bow prehab, I grab a barbell, I push in, I push out, I push up, I push down. I do
Hmm.
that with internal rotation each way. I do with external rotation each way. I do isometrics with that. So isometrics have the least amount of inflammation of the kind of resistance training. So I do that as a warm up, and I do that for joint stability. So one of the courses that I've taken over the years, they really push, they call them myometrics, which is dynamic strength training, isometrics, which is hold or pushing like plank, or
Mhm.
wall squat, and then plyometrics. And plyometrics can host or umbrella a lot of things, but it's basically velocity things.
Mhm.
Or you might see the eccentrics or the negatives. So
Mhm.
you're doing a squat and you're going down real slow. All three of those things are muscle contractions. So your body has to do, you know, up, it's got to hold, stabilize, and it's got to go down. So I think it's very important to practice those. And so I will have a day where I do heavy strength. I'll do kind of the power lifts, if you will.
Mhm.
So squat, deadlift, bench
Mhm.
press, and some kind of pull up or lat pull down. I will do that plyometric dynamically, 3 sets of 5 or whatever the goal is. And then I'm going to have another day where I do those same 3 exercises on the ISOFIT. So we have this thing called ISOFIT. It's basically a bench or machine that's got a static bar that you can change the angles, and
Okay.
you push or pull into it, and it doesn't move.
Okay.
And so what's really cool about that is you can push as hard as you can, and it's not going to move. So it's really safe when you're changing and you have a ton of load on you. There's a huge risk for getting hurt.
Uh-huh.
So this decreases that risk, which is really cool. As far as my profession, I geek out. I have these pressure sensors, and I can tell how much you're pushing or pulling.
Yeah.
And
I
so
saw you doing that. Yeah.
I nerd
Yeah.
out with the
Uh-huh.
dynamometers with that. And then the plyometrics, just moving quickly. Or a lot of people say my knees are killing me or my quads are burning going down a mountain. It's because, I mean, you're probably deconditioned or not used to doing that. So sometimes you'll see people on a treadmill walking backwards, going at the incline kind of in reverse. That's a good exercise if that's all you have. Step downs, controlled step downs,
Mhm.
using tempo training. I'm going to do this real slow. I'm going to do it real fast. So, you know, taking every angle and aspect and saying, let's check this box or let's
Mhm.
turn that light switch on so that your nervous system is at its best and you can handle anything and everything that goes on.
It's interesting because there were two things that you said so far, like with the power and the velocity, because we train more than just than outdoorsmen. So I've got an 80-year-old grandmother, and she deadlifts, and we do ladder drills. Now, does she do ladder drills like a 16-year-old soccer player? Not at all. But she's making the foot patterns as she goes, and it translates over to life. The second thing, and I don't know if you do it exactly the same way as I'm going to say it, but as we're working with clientele, one of my favorite things to do is I'll say, "Go shoot your bow, go ruck, go do what you're gonna do, and then I want you to come back and tell me where you feel the deficiency was. Was it I'm leaning to a side? Do I have an energy leak where I'm leaning to the side? Um, am I struggling to draw? Maybe it's too much draw weight, or maybe it's something we can do. So what you're saying and how you train and yourself and then your clientele, I mean, it mirrors images, uh, really, really what we believe too. So I think it's some of the greatest training you're gonna find right there. Fountain of youth stuff as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I always have this funny saying. I have older, I have people in their 80s, and they
Mhm.
always say, well, I don't need to train like an athlete. And I'm like, our bodies are exactly the same.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. Our physiology is exactly the same.
Mhm.
Our hormones might be a little different from each decade to decade,
Right.
but if the best of the best is doing it a certain way,
Mhm.
that is optimal. So why aren't we doing that same thing? So that's kind of my philosophy with
Yep.
training people.
Yep.
If this is what the Olympic athlete or Hall of Famer is doing,
Mhm.
that is the best to what we know or knowledge that we have at the moment to do this stuff. And so I really love exploring and learning about new modalities, new tools,
Mhm.
new things. I didn't really get into recovery. So recovery, I talked a little about with this swimming thing.
Mhm.
That is strategically in between my two. So Tuesday I run. Saturday I do a long hike with light load, moderate load, and then Thursday in between there is my swimming day. So I'm still getting cardio every other day,
Hmm.
but I'm not putting joint stress as much on the swimming day. So they're strategic. But
Yep.
then again, getting before that hunt or before you go away, you gotta up the ante a little bit, because if you're doing something 7 days in a row and you've only been training 3 days of that, you're doubling the volume and your body's not going to be prepared.
Right.
Another thing I say with the hiking, rocking, backcountry stuff, you're doing something from 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 3 a.m., whatever, if you go alpine, you're up before the sun and you're hiking, trying to get to a glassing up,
Hmm.
you're going from like 4 a.m. till midnight, or
Hmm.
4 a.m. until dark, 10 o'clock. You can't train for that in the gym.
Right.
Your hour workout is nothing compared to 12, 16 hours of
Hmm.
whatever your pack out is. And so you got to get your body conditioned just enough so that it can handle what you're doing to it. But you're never going to be able to it's like running a marathon. You don't see people run marathons every day
Hmm.
to get ready for a marathon.
Hmm.
They train up to about 20 miles and they say, okay, I'm gonna, buck up and grunt
Yep.
and
Yep.
punch through the last 6 miles, but I know I
Yep.
can do 20. And
Right.
so my training progressions are the same way. It's like, get up to 80% of what you need to do,
Hmm.
knowing that, okay, I've conditioned, I have 15 weeks of adaptation, I'm in shape, I'm strong, I'm not injured. And then, you have that mindset of confidence of I can do this,
Yep.
not, oh crap, I waited till the last minute. I'm a
Yep.
procrastinator. I wish I would have done this. I was Googling, they have the, 2 weeks to get in shape for a marathon.
Hmm.
It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, and it's like the number one hit on Google. I'm like, what the heck? This
That's
is
funny.
crazy.
That's
So
funny.
yeah, pace it out, take your time. You got any other questions for me?
No, man. I think the best question now is how would people find you?
Yeah, so my company is called Science of Cardio. So you can go on Facebook or Instagram or scienceofcardio.com. I'm kind of doing a separate page. So it's scienceofcardio.huntfit on
Hmm.
Instagram and also Facebook. So that way I don't have all the gory dead things hanging in, my just general fitness business.
Sure.
But you
Sure.
can find me either way. There's a lot more hunting, shooting, guns, antlers, that kind of
Right.
stuff on
Right.
the sciencecardio.hubfit. But yeah, check it out. Tell me what you think. There's some really
Absolutely.
cool nuggets, and very forward thinking kind of thoughts in there.
I love it. What you talked about tonight is almost mirror images what we are. So I mean, I appreciate it. I respect it. Um, like I said, I'm watching high school athletes do this stuff, and I'm watching 80-year-old grandmas do this stuff, and everybody in between, and they're thriving. So,
Yep,
to me, it's a I call it a blueprint or a recipe that can be tweaked, but
yep.
man, it seems to work. So,
Right on. Well,
right.
cool. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure talking to you, and man, we'll catch up soon.
Sounds good. Thank
All right.
you.
I really appreciate what Ryan does because his philosophy, it mirrors our own. And in a world where social media pushes influencer fitness and really iffy info, Ryan is coaching people in a process that is safe, it's effective, and it gets results. And it's sustainable. That's the biggest thing. So if you aren't following him, I'm going to encourage you to do so. Well, here we are. It's January, and it's hard to believe we're already in season 2 of the podcast. We're really appreciative that you're here, that you continue to listen, that you download, you subscribe, and here's the other side of the coin. Turkey season itself is coming in hot, and we wanted to try something different this year. So we're going to do something called the Drop a Turkey Challenge. It's going to kick off January 26th, and it is going to be an online small group training experience to provide the right workout plan, accountability, community, and a whole lot more. We're going to do this over an 8-week time period, and it's going to get you absolutely ready for turkey season. So, aside from this 8-week hunting specific program that's geared really towards preparing you for the spring, we're also going to do 3 virtual group coaching sessions. We're going to start a Facebook accountability group, which is going to have more than just accountability. We're also going to have a lot of content in there. And we're going to work to identify and solidify solid habits for long-term success. And here's the cool thing. Whoever participates is going to get 25% off all Fit to Hunt programs and apparel for the entirety of 2026. So if you're interested, I want you to hop over to our website. There's a little pop-up box on there you can join. But here's a sense of urgency. We're only taking 20 participants, 19 now at the time of this recording. We're really excited about the work we are doing and honestly the opportunities coming this year. Thanks for being part of this community and listening to the show. At the end of this, we do this for you. So we appreciate you listening. We appreciate you supporting the show and being part of this community. My friends, have a great day. You stay fit to hunt.